In 2026, we no longer live in a world where it's okay to not know how to code. In this video, I'm going to show you something really, really special that a lot of people have been getting their hands on, have been trying out recently, and it's been very, very evolutionary for their businesses. Agentic workflows. Incredible stuff. I'm going to show you with this brief example, the power, and then I'm going to explain in very, very layman's terms what's actually going on and what this is versus what this isn't. So I have a sheet here with a few leads, a few people that I've scraped from Apollo, and here is my set of agentic workflows. And I'm going to explain all of this in a second, but for now, I'm going to create a prompt, which is going to do a number of things, which are going to launch a number of different executions. So I have a sheet here. Can you scrape these websites to find out if these companies offer content creation services, clean their emails, find the MS records, and create icebreakers as well? Let's try this one again. Here is going to show you that it's going to start thinking. It's going through all of the different things to coordinate itself. I'll help you process the Google Sheet. Let me explore the existing workflow code to understand how the tasks work. Here are here's the thinking that it's doing. And all this is doing is it's creating a plan to run a number of different executions. And what this is doing is it's running a couple of commands. And then from there, it's going to start with the first few things. So you can see it's already read from my own. There you go. It's read that there's 4 companies in the sheet. It's found the sheet in and of itself from the URL, and it's saying it's going to scrape the emails, clean the emails, and then find MX records, create the icebreakers, and do what it needs to do. It's even created its own list of to-dos. It's done, or it's doing the first one. It's then going to clean and validate the email addresses. It's then going to find out if the companies are, or if the emails themselves are Microsoft, Google, Ionos, Apple, Yahoo, Gmail, Ymail, whatever it may be, and then generate a bunch of icebreakers from LinkedIn profiles using Apify. All of this here is being done because we have been speaking back and forth with Cursor to generate all of these scripts and all of these directives. So whilst this is running, I'm going to talk about something that is going to get you a better understanding of everything that you need to know. This is going to be dumbed down, and up until this current moment in time, there will be loads and loads of advances on this, but this is going to be a very quick primer to describe exactly what we're looking at right now and the opportunity that's in front of us. So here's what you need to know. Agentic workflows. These are simply AI agents made using IDEs, which are integrated developing environments like Cursor, Visual Studio Code, which is what you'd use Claude Code in, and Google Anti-Gravity, instead of using no-code platforms like Make and NAN. So you see how the agents inside of NAN are their own little block, and you have to drag and drop them, and you have to make sure that you put the right variables in. You have to make sure that everything's connected the way that it's meant to be connected. You create your structured outputs. All of that stuff you have to draw on. Now you don't have to draw anything. You just natural language speak English, and then it creates the same flows directly for you. It's a set of prompts written in text files being referenced by an orchestrator, which is then used and written to complete a series of executions, which are written bits of code that do the same thing as your basic NAN and Make workflows. Everything here is natural language, and all we're doing is we're turning those long automations into Python scripts. Python, and sometimes it can be TypeScript, which are TSX. Now, I'm going to do this without talking about as much of the nitty gritty that you don't specifically need to know in order to get started in this video, but I am going to give you the problem that this is, the problem of what's currently going on, the solution that this provides, and the actual technical stuff that you need to know that I'm not going to go on and explain as to why you need to know it in ways that you won't be able to understand. So the real problem up until now, and this is something that I've noticed even in my own business as I've been building, project management systems and CRMs in different businesses, the big problem is determinism. So what is determinism? Determinism is the need for things to be static. So for example, if I take the understanding of determinism and explain it as how it manifests whenever you're building things that you need in order to basically have code leverage in your business, the biggest things that have been the blockers are static tool directories. So what does this mean? We are limited insofar as what we have built. If I have, and I do have this, I have a set of blueprints for make and NaN that I will use as starting positions for a lot of the people that I work with. If I want to make anything new, I would have to put in a lot of labor in order to make those new things. I would have to go in and I would have to make something that I don't already have from scratch, figure out the logic, and then I would need to connect it to a static schema that has to always be followed. Now, what does this mean? Well, I build everything in Airtable. If everything is using Airtable or sometimes even Supabase, and my only way of getting things done is to follow specifically what's going on inside of Airtable. I need this column, which follows this schema. I need this, I need this, I need this. And I have to manually click every single item and variable so that it follows those, the schema. And if there's anything that is outside of that schema, I'm now not able to do what I need to do in order to get it done. That generates a lot of time wasted back and forth. So what the problem is with this is really just speed. Everything is slow, everything is exact, and there's nothing to allow for the solution, which is adaptability. It's hard to be adaptable when you have static tool directories. So what the solution is that Agentic Workflows provides is the ability to create your own tools on the fly. This is what's been manifested in Cursor. Oh, so we're all done here. So I'll go and check that in a second. This is what's been manifested here with the generation of all of these scripts. I have not touched a single line of code in any of these scripts that you can see right here. All I've done is I've said I need something, and it has generated its own .md file, which we'll talk about in a second, and its own set of scripts in Python. That's it. So if you can create your own tools on the fly, then you basically can get around the static tool directories problem. And if you need to follow a static schema, well, in this case, it auto corrects for any schema that you have. This is the power of what we're dealing with right now. So if you have both of these, you're so good. Now, I'm actually going to go, I'm going to come back to what this is and what this isn't, because I'll tackle that at the end of the video once I've spoken about some of the technical specifications. Here, you can understand that there are a few things that are at play now. These are all back-end processes. They happen in the background after you click buttons and you say stuff. This isn't front end where you're actually typing buttons, clicking on things, managing UX, managing UI. It's not got to do with any of that. It's what happens underneath whatever app that you're using. Considering these are back-end processes and we're working in IDEs, we need to understand coding environments. Well, the ones that are available to you are Google Anti-Gravity. We have Visual Studio Code, which is also Claude, and we have Cursor. These are the three. I don't worry about anything else other than these three. Personally, I use Cursor because I've used Cursor the most. That's literally it. But a lot of people are using Claude Code, and Claude Code has its own benefits as well, especially with skills, which is what we're going to talk about in a second. Then you have a master prompt. So if you look here, you can see that we have a bunch of things inside of executions and directives. But if we come out of that, you can see that there are .env files, which I'm not going to click because you're not going to see all of my API keys. But we have AGENTS.md, CLAUDE.md, and Gemini.md. If I open one of these, I'll open the Claude one, for example. This here is a master prompt, which I've adapted based on the one that Nick Sarayev put out for specific needs that I have seen. His one doesn't actually fulfill for my needs. But the whole point of this is there's a 3-layer architecture, which is directives, orchestration, and execution. Directives are just, SOPs written in Markdown, which is exactly what those are. They're kind of prompts that are guiding the creation and the manifestation and usage of certain tools. Orchestration, which is me talking to you right now, Mr. Cursor. This is the orchestration layer. And an execution, which is doing the work. The real benefits of using this is that this gets lumped into every single conversation that you have. And you see here, this tiny little thing here, this tiny little line here, it shows you how much of the context that you have available. 92,000 credits or tokens have been used already, because it's using this, which is what the conversation was, as well as this, as well as all of the directives in here. So there are going to be more things that I'll talk about when it comes to managing your context, but this is what that file is. So you're going to need, for Google Anti-Gravity, Gemini.md. I can't spell. Gemini.md. For Cursor or whatever it may be, you're going to need Agents.md. And for Claude, you're going to need Claude.md. I personally have all three of these inside of the templates that I use, but it just keeps everything sort of like standardized. Then you have the framework, which is exactly what I've spoken about, which is directives, orchestration, and execution. And in Claude.md, you can have DOE, but you can also have Claude Skills. And here's the difference between the two of them. You have what I showed you when it came to how these looked with the folders, directives, and execution. And within directives, you have a bunch of different .md files. With execution, you have a bunch of different .py files. So you can see here, directives, this is prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3. Then you have the executions, prompt 1, prompt 2, prompt 3. Claude Skills is a little bit different. Claude Skills has a root folder. And then after that, you have agent 1, which is, you know, the actual agent that you want to use, and all of the scripts or all of the workflows are piled in. It can be in Python or it can be TypeScript, whatever it may be. You have resources, which kind of just gets created on the fly anyways. And then you have skill.md. Skill.md is the same as workflow _ prompt 1md over here. So what am I talking about? These .md files, as you can see, are prompts. Prompts that you just hold inside of the system. Ignore install dependencies and all of this other stuff here, which looks like gobbledygook. You don't need to worry about it. It's not that important. The only thing you need to understand with a .md file, .md files are just fancy text files. Just think of it like that. This is a company name cleaner, which is one of the things that we used inside of the create icebreakers. This is part of that same flow. It just says, this is what it is. This is when to use it. Prerequisites. This is your system prompt that you'd put inside of any AI agent that you're using inside of NAN. That's literally all this is. And it has its own set of ideas and ways that it works. This is the 2+1 voting system, which I prompted up for it, which basically uses 2 cheat models to give different perspectives on the same name for cleaning. And then a third model breaks any ties and then picks the most human readable result, which is something that you can't actually do really effectively or without a lot of waste in things like clay.com, which is what you'd use this for, because a lot of these are cold email related scripts. You can create these ideas and have code do things beyond the scope of what other people can do if you have the ideas that are just readily available to you to fulfill on. But that's what these .md files are, and that's how the Claude Skills side looks. So if I open up Claude Skills test, you'll see what this looks like really. So you have here Slack Digest. Inside of the Slack Digest folder, you have resources, you have script, and then you have skill.md. Skill.md looks a little bit different to the way that the other files look, where you have you have this up here at the top. This is always at the top, and then you have the rest of the prompt. So it's very, very similar, but it's a little bit smaller, and it comes with this at the top anyways. This is part of the Claude Agent Skills way of doing things, but it's basically the same thing. The final step is deployment. Now, deployment is basically just taking this stuff off of your computer. So if you see how I've gone in and in the creation of this sheet, and in fact, we'll actually take a look at the sheet. We'll see how it looks. So you can see here that this was the test. This was the intermediate, number 1, which is the output, meets criteria, true or error, and what the confidence is. It gave me a summary. It scraped the case study, including the information from the case study, and it scraped another one as well. So this was the intermediate one. This came out of the website scrape. Then we have the cleaning part of these emails. We have the result here, which is valid, and then we have the icebreakers. And the icebreakers here will basically just shows, okay, we saw that you guys do this in the creative industry, saw that you guys do a lot of creative content, saw that you guys do a lot of great work in client services, saw that you guys do video production for brands. So it's just done all of these things. Now, naturally, what this is meant to do is it's meant to go and just create one final sheet, which I actually have had as an output in, you know, the larger ones that I've done over here. But, you know, you can see how each one has worked, and that is one small prompt that can be used in order to change all of these anyways. But those are the results, and that's what can kind of be created when you do these kinds of things. So going by all of these, if I was to run this here without deployment, and let's say instead of 4 rows, I had 40,000 rows, it would use my computer's memory. Now, I did this 2 days ago and I couldn't do anything. My whole day of work was shut down. And the reason why is because when you don't deploy something, what you're doing is you're using compute power, i.e. the computer's power, in order to fulfill certain tasks. So these commands require a little bit of memory, the same way that opening a new tab and clicking on a new YouTube video uses some of your memory. You don't want to do that. Nothing should be doing that. Therefore, you want to deploy, and deployment is just taking the thing that is on your computer and running those commands in the cloud so that your memory is saved. And you could do things like parallelization, which is a fancy term for doing the same thing, over 50 times the computers. So instead of using your one computer, you can do things and spread it out over like 50 different computes. I've used Modal for this. Now, modal.com, if I go over here, will show you all of the workflows that I have embedded inside of my marketing workflows over here. So these executions, all of these .py files, you can see all of the names down here, and they are all grouped on one web endpoint called cold email, which means if I run any of these, it will call myurl.com/cold email/ find the MX records / find the clean companies / clean the emails, wherever it may be. Once you've deployed this, you can now start to do things like calling this from Slack, calling this from Telegram, calling this from your emails, calling this from SMS, and any other web app you decide to create. And you should have the ability to do that for every single means that you have inside of your business, just so that these actually become embedded in something that every single person on your team can use, irrespective of where they spend the most time. So given all of this, that is a brief description as to exactly what is going on here. I'm going to tell you what it is and what it isn't. So from what you've seen already, you can see that what it is the ability to bring the full power of code into AI agents beyond code nodes in Make and NAN. One problem that I'd noticed a lot when it came to creating a lot of things inside of NAN and Make with the code nodes is that they were very, very limited by what could be done inside of a specific node. The amount of information that could go in would break because you're limited to a certain number of lines. Certain things that needed to be downloaded on a computer, like FFmpeg, if you wanted to, for example, download a video and then do some things with video editing, etc., and create and put files somewhere, is something that you also have a lot of struggles with when doing it inside of Make and NAN. You can get around that with this. You don't need, those problems don't exist anymore when you can do this. So a lot of the people who are doing things that are really, really high in the content world, which requires a lot of the ability to compute a lot of things, they can be done even though they weren't able to be done inside of Make and NAN. You're only limited by your imagination, which is absolutely facts. If you can't think of something right now after seeing this video that you would try, you have an imagination barrier. You genuinely have an imagination barrier. And being able to just prompt these, which I'll make a video on some of the prompts that I use in order to generate a lot of those cold email templates. It's so easy for you to be able to do this that it just doesn't make sense for you to not do this. It's also easier to materialize than anything else on the market, meaning creating these through natural language works better than using NAN and, Make.com's or Zapier's. I want to turn this, whenever I want to read this Airtable table, whenever there's an update, I want to do this and then this and then this. You don't need to even say that. You can just say, this is my goal. This is what success looks like. Go and build it. And it will do it for you. And it's really fantastic at doing hundreds of really, really small jobs. So now I'm going to talk about some of what it isn't. It is not the end of NAN or Make. Reason being, you already have a ton of stuff on these platforms. They can interweave with existing workflows. And because of that, you now actually have the ability to send HTTP requests or send requests from your actual automations in Zapier or Make or NAN or whatever platform you're using over to your own agentic workflows, wait for a response, and then do stuff with the rest of your automations. You are 100% able to do that right now. It is not a complete replacement for your entire system, mostly because of that, and also because some things are just easier to do in NAN or Make. They just are. If I want to move X whenever Y occurs, and I only need a 2-step zap to do that, I'm going to do that in Zapier. I can do that in Cursor, but it would be a waste of the space that my master prompts and my .md files are going to need in order to do specific things. It's not a one prompt solution that works 99.9% of the time. And I'll show you some examples of things that actually are a little bit annoying to work with. One thing is deployment. Modal is easier than anything else that I've tried. It's easier than Railway. It's easier than, I would say Vercel is actually easier than Railway. It's easier than this. It's easier than this. And what was the last one I tried? Trigger.dev. It's easier than all of these. Now, don't worry too much about the idea of deployment. Just know that if you're doing anything agentic workflows based, I've tried all 4 of these. Railway times that will do a timeout really, really quickly. So if you have something that takes longer than 30 seconds to do, which is a lot of things, it just will stop everything. Vercel takes a long time to get started. So if I trigger something, it's called a cold start. If I trigger something from cold, i.e. I send a message to my Slack bot saying, hey, here's a list, go and do a website scrape. It will take 2 minutes to start and then it will get going, which is kind of annoying. Trigger.dev is very similar to Modal. Now, granted, I didn't actually need to run Trigger.dev. The only reason why I tried it is because Modal was bugging out for me a little bit, but that was a UI problem that I had that I don't think you'll have. Modal right now has been the easiest way to set up because it comes with 2 terminal commands that you can just copy and paste into the chat and then get going with. And it expands out to about 100 containers and you can do that for free, meaning instead of your one computer running your agent's task, it spins up 100 computers on the cloud and then drops them the moment that the task is done. This does take some time sometimes to get right. There were some problems with all of these when I tried them. Sometimes getting it in there in the first place is a problem. Getting it from your GitHub, because a lot of the times you can just take the code that you have over here and you can just dump them into Git. You can just like commit to GitHub and then it will read GitHub and then do another deployment there. From there, sometimes that can be a little bit finicky. The other examples are dealing with Slack bots. Sometimes one of the issues is there's a thing called event subscriptions in Slack. So if I actually want to message a bot and have a bot do stuff on the back end, I have to turn on what's called event subscriptions, and event subscriptions can sometimes be a bit fiddly. It's also not amazing at finding out how to do a load of things at once. So chaining things together, or chaining different prompts together. I'll call it prompt work. So for example, what I did just there, where I had this sheet give me this, and then this, and then this, when it all should have just been in one sheet, that is something that you need to cover in your prompt. It won't always get that 100% right. So these are just some examples. And then the big thing, which is really mostly for me, a big thing, it's not going to work at scale without infrastructure that supports scale. So what do I mean by that? Not to sort of like go too in depth on this story, but I've worked with a couple of people who have done some very, very heavy duty automation. I'm talking the type of automation that a team of 100 Indian developers were doing manually, which took $6,000 per month off of the bottom line of the business. I've helped this is a previous client of mine. I've helped him get in front of somebody who could build something that would replace their entire system. And that contained taking hundreds upon thousands of records of businesses, putting them through Google Solar's API, because it was a Solar client, putting them through the API to determine if there was what the size of the systems were that could fit on top of the roof, running that through another machine learning model, running that through enrichment and enhancement through Claude.com to find verified contacts and business owners and stuff like that. It was super, super heavy duty stuff. It required Docker, it required AWS, it required a bunch of different containers, different Postgres, different types of compute, EC2. I was dealing with a lot of AWS stuff at that time. And unfortunately, if your idea for an agentic workflow is something that would basically be hundreds upon thousands, if not millions of credits inside of make.com, and you want to do it using an agentic workflow, I guarantee you won't be able to get this done without understanding the infrastructure that supports scale and implementing some of that into your agentic workflows, which can make things a little bit more difficult is the wrong word, but complex is the right word. So that's a brief rundown as to everything that is required for you to understand insofar as making agentic workflows for yourself. There is not a single reason why you should not be using this right now in your business in some way, shape, or form. So I highly, highly recommend you jump on Cursor or something along those lines in order to get this going. I am going to make so many more videos on this, just giving you guys ideas about things that you can make because I'm using them for myself. So I'm just going to give you the ideas that I've either given to myself or I've done for clients. It's been Sheni. Look at my videos. You'll see a number of other things with regards to what I actually do for different businesses, and you're going to see way more of this because this is groundbreaking stuff.